This is the first bit we're going to do of this this little Stradic, and that's the line roller, which you can't replace the bearing in because it's a unit, so that Shimano get to sell you a complete unit instead of just a bearing. But what we can do is we can get these parts and build one, so that the next time a line roller bearing goes in this reel, and you know they go quite often, it's just a matter of flicking the bearing out, putting a new bearing in, and away we go. We're still waiting on one part for this, which is a little nylon spacing ring, but that's coming soon, we hope. So that just slips in like that, and the bearing like that. I don't know whether you can see there, just there's a little ridge right there, and that gets a plastic spacer that goes around there, which builds this up to the same size as that. You might be able to see that it's slightly narrower, but that's okay. We put that spacer on there and it's as good as a new one. So that's that. So that little piece at the moment, until we get that the other spacer. Now the handle, because might as well do the easy stuff first, right? All in reasonable neck. We'll just put the usual film with grease on there. So in the bottom of these, if you can see that, it's not a bearing in there, it's just a bush, and that's not a bad thing. It's a nylon bush because, well, they don't seize like bearings do. But anyway, in the top goes this fella, which is a new bearing. The one we took out was no good. We just need to get him down in there. Like that. Can you see in there? So now what I'll do is put the screw in, using a little bit of grease on the screwdriver trick. Whack the screw in, just check for packing and spacing. Okay, tiny little bit of movement there. So what we'll do is we will take that out, take that off, and we will just find ourselves a spacer. Put it back in. So every chance that was too much, so we'll just check it. It becomes, when you're putting spacers in, it becomes a case of put your spacers in, put it back together, check it. You know, if it's too much, pull it apart, take a spacer out, and just keep on doing that until you get it right. Okay, so see, that's too tight now with that spacer in there. So somewhere in between that one and nothing is where we need to be. Okay, I'll just go to my secret stash of spacers and I will be right back. So we found the correct spacer, and as you can see, no movement now, free spinning, so we'll go ahead and make that the thing. Come on. Because as normal, got to put a little drop of this on, because the last thing you want to do, and it happens quite often, is be out in the boat and your knob just falls off. But you know, if that happens, because that screw will back its way out if it's not given a little piece of Loctite. Yeah, that's seated itself nicely after being tightened up. She's a good one. That can go back in there. And we'll call that handle done. Good as a bought one. Now we'll reassemble the rotor. Got all our parts laid out there. Now that it's all nice and clean, take that out. For now. Next bit we need is that tiny little washer there. Goes on like so, and then that's your bail spring, goes on, and that's the pivot. It helps if you're an octopus when you're doing this, because ideally you need more fingers, but we'll just play with the cards that are dealt to us, right? It clicks down into there. Next, the clicker button. That goes in there. A little button there, which maybe you can, maybe you can't see because it's white. Sits in there. There we go again. There we are. Now it all becomes a case of lining that little hole there up with that. without letting all these things fall out. So like that, and then a little bit of pressure to locate it, holding your thumb there so that this black thing doesn't shoot off and go into space. And we'll put a screw in there. No Loctite on these because they're self-tappers. They just self-tap into the plastic. Just make sure that's moving. Yep, good. Okay, make sure it's all free there. Just put a drop. See how that pops out? I don't know if you can see that. So that's popping out there. Well, that's trying to shoot off and fly away. Well, we won't let it. So we'll just put a drop of machine oil there, drop there, and a drop there. And then put this on, and everything in there will be kept safe. One screw on this side that holds everything. There's the trip arm there. Hope you can see that. Check that for you get a satisfying click there. That's that little white button we put in. Now this side can go back on, because it doesn't actually do anything. This side, this piece here doesn't actually, it's just a decoration piece. So we will put that screw in there. There's one's a Phillips head screw which goes in there. And the other one is a star head which goes down in there. That's that. Now we can put this on the bale wire, just because. Put a drop there. And a drop there. And a drop there. And we'll put this line roller in place because just to keep the parts sort of secure while we wait for that one little spacer to arrive. Okay, so that's the support post. That's one of them. Oops, get the whole thing. Put it on, put the other spacer on that side, and a washer. You can see how that's sort of going in too far there, too close to there. Well, that'll come out when we put that other spacing washer on there. So that can just go for now into there. And that's that for now. Nice and quiet now, no sand. So I'm going to call the rotor done, except for that one little spacer. Yeah, we'll reassemble this spool, or we'll reassemble the drag, which is effectively all there is to the spool. Oh, one little thing. We'll show that first. Just get a drop on there. And just work it in. That's all you need, just that one drop. You don't want to put too much grease and oil and stuff under there, because when you get sand go in there and there's too much grease and oil, it just attracts the sand and holds it, and that becomes an abrasive, and that's not good. So we'll just go ahead and put on our duathlon power drag grease. So you've probably seen me do this before. Just put enough on there to give it a good coating. Work it in so that it goes into the fibres. And then you need to just leave enough on there to show a film, and if, I don't know whether this will come up again on camera, but if I press my finger on that, it just leaves a fingerprint on there. Okay, it doesn't leave a big divot in the grease. That's how much you want. First one of them. Next, this carriage piece. Then another drag washer. And same again. Grease. Sits on that. Then the eared washer. Make sure we locate those ears in their grooves. Now the last drag washer. Like that, and then get all the excess grease off one's fingers, because it's horrible. And then the last drag metal piece, and you'll see there that there's 4 little holes there that match up with 4 little pieces there. Sit that on top, like that. Then the clip goes in and seats itself into its own special groove, and click. And look, that's it. And simple, right? Simple, straightforward. No drama. That's the spool done. Now we're going to reassemble the drag knob. And the first thing I'll put in there is that. Then I'll drop the nut in there. Like that. Then we'll put another one of Shimano's favourite little clicker springs, tiny little, in that hole there. And the accompanying plastic nylon, plastic, whatever it is. Click a button, sits like that. Then that spring. Now, before I put this cap on, I'm just going to give it a drop of this just in there, just so that it goes down into that nut down there. Then this piece will go on, and you can see there the little circle of holes there. They made up with that clicker button there, and that was what makes the satisfying click click sound when you do your drag up. Now this is a little bit not hard, but you need, again, octopus hands. This is the retaining clip for this, so just locate it in there, and then with all your extra fingers and stuff, this must be exciting to watch. Notice I got my thumb over the top of the clip there, so that if it jumps out and tries to go flying up, and that's it. That's that located, and this piece just pushes over and sits in it, just pushes down into its own little recess there, and that's the drag knob done. Okay, so we're going to start reassembling the body and the rest of the reel as it goes. So these here have all had a little light coat of gear grease on the metal parts. The plastic parts, not so much. And we just start fitting them back in. This one goes up in there. Put these all back in first. Line them up. Oh, good. There we go. I just needed a bit of jiggling to get it. Okay. There we go. And easier that time than it did the first time. So we'll drop that in. Then we'll put that in through this end. Line it up. And we just have to line the gear up with the, there we go, hold him into place. And on here, we'll pop that shim and then the nylon piece, which we'll put that way. Again, no Loctite on these, they're self-tappers into plastic. And that's the worm shaft backing. And going just like I bought one. So here's the replacement bearings we've got to get. 5, 8. 7, 11, 3. We'll get those two first because they're in the same box. And these ones, the last two. 7, 13, 4. This one, 7, 14, 5. And that's the last one of them, so another trip to the bearing shop coming up. So I'll go ahead off camera and open these up as I've showed before. Put a drop of oil inside each one and be right back. So the first one to go back in with a film, just a film. Goes down in there. And just carefully pop it into place. And go again without pressing on the shield or the inner race, just pressing on the outer race. And that's ready to go. the next thing I'm going to assemble and put in is the main shaft. A coating of grease here on pretty much everything except those threads there. Leave them without grease because they get a bit of Loctite on them. Okay, first bit is the pawl, P-A-W-L, not Paul, but pawl, so to speak. Okay, don't fly away, don't fly away. There we go. Make sure that it's seated correctly, and it is. Put this back in. It only goes in one way. It's got a little ridge on it, little lip. Set that in there. This also only goes in one way. Don't even know if you can see that dot I put on there, but it is there. Same for that one. Oops. Just give those a bit of a nip up. Good to go. So the next step, we'll put a film all the way on the shaft. Slides in. Now we just make sure that it's sitting on the grooves there. Next we'll put this slider, I don't know, what's it called? slider guide rod. Goes in like that. You see a little rubber O-ring. It's just a seal, water seal. Fits up in there. Now we just locate the end of it into its recess. There. Push that in till it seats. And that's good for that one. Next we'll put the 5/8 2.5 bearing, which is the lower pinion bearing. We'll put that in. Seat that in there. Put a little bit of grease around that there, because I don't know why, but somehow magically this is the bearing that goes most often. So we've got the gear grease out again for the pinion bearing, and we'll put not a lot, but a complete covering. It'll pick up most of its gear grease from the main gear, but we'll just put a little bit on there, just so that it covers where it touches with that aluminium idle gear there. That should just slide nicely onto there, engage with that idle gear, and then just pop into the bearing there. And that seems to be as it should be. Next we'll pop in the top bearing into there, just to, well, because it's the next step. We'll put a film inside there. Not that this needs it because it's plastic, but it'll be touching on the race of the bearing, which is not. Okay, that's the top pinion bearing. Again, a barrier film. And to hold that pinion bearing and that idle gear shaft, to hold them in place, we pop the anti-reverse clutch on. Now that can go on, and you'll see, I don't know whether you can see up in there. Let me get my pointer. That little thingamy there locates on that little thingamy there. And there's two little locating pins down there as well, which go in there and in there. And if we get all those things aligned, it becomes there. A simple matter of popping it on. Now we come grab this. And 3 screws. Don't over tighten them because, again, they're self-tappers, so. And that's the pinion held in place. Check for free motion. And that's what it needs to look like. So we'll just put this to one side for now, and we'll just do this side of the body next, because this is metal and it did have a bit of corrosion from the water sitting in there. Cleaned up obviously, but we'll just give it a coat all over of semi-fluid grease. Which will go a long way towards preventing the corrosion that had started from going any further. I'll also put a bit on the inside of that bearing race there, just where it contacts the bearing. And we'll put a tiny bit on this little recess here. Which takes a rubber seal, and we'll just before we go any further, we'll pop this little seal back in that locates itself down in there. And that grease, that sort of film of grease, will help to just to hold it in place while it all goes back together. Good. Perfect. Perfect? Well, perfect enough. No, it's perfect. Next we can pop this on, which is the automatic trip ramp. That's where it goes. It's the little thing in the rotor, slides up there and trips the bail arm over. I don't recommend people use that. Best thing for your reel is to manually trip your bail every time. Less things will break down over time, your reel will last longer. It works and it functions, but every time, if you're doing it automatically, your rotor flies around and crashes into that thing and flicks over and goes bang. If you do it by hand every time, just as quick and a lot less stress for your reel. But anyway, that's just that's just the way I see it. We'll prepare this main gear now to go back in. We'll get a coating of gear grease on the gear faces. They will transfer to the pinion gear as well, which already has some of its own, but this will just marry the two together. That's as it should be. Now we'll just coat the whole gear, the rest of it, with semi-fluid. Not a lot, as I keep on saying, just a film, but it just provides, you know, a little protection against corrosion should any moisture get inside in the future. This sort of thing isn't done at factory, so when you get your brand new reel out of the box, it doesn't have this on it. And that should just fit nicely down in there, into that bearing. And a bit of a wriggle. There we go. Just popped into place. Check for freedom of movement. Yep, that's all the way. Make some spacing washers. We may or may not have to adjust them. We'll have to put it together and see how it feels. We can put this away now because we're finished with the gear grease. Always pays if you can to keep the lids on your grease pots, because apparently the grease oxidizes if you don't, with the oxygen in the air, and degrades your grease. So that's a fairly simple thing that you can do to prolong your grease, the life of your pot of grease. Next thing we'll do, what we'll do is we'll just put a film on that seal. Put that down on there. That seats nicely. So just before we pop the body back together, we will just put a bead around the body, just for a bit of waterproofing. It won't be a complete waterproofing, so to speak, because no fishing reel, doesn't matter what the manufacturers say, none of them are waterproof. You could make a case for Van Staals, but I've seen Van Staals even come through that have had water in them. So that sort of, this bead around here will just provide just a little bit of an extra barrier. Just make sure that little bloke there is seated. There we go. Pop that on. And you can see, I don't know whether you can see, you should be able to see, we've got a little bit of squeeze out from around there, which is good. That's what you want to see. We'll go ahead and pop some screws in and proceed. I hope you can see there now. I've got the body screws in. You can see the squeeze out of the grease from the and that's great. That's what we want. So we'll wipe that, just that bit of excess off. Bit of excess off from there. The rest of that can stay there, that's fine. Check for freedom of movement again. Make sure it's not catching anywhere. I don't expect that it would, but before you go too much further in the assembly, just want to make sure you don't have to go back in there. And that is good to go. So next, we'll just get our semi-fluid grease again. And we'll just give this under here just a coat. In that little hole there. The screw head. Pay attention to around here, because that's a entry point for water. And that screw head there, because that will be hidden. And that's good to go. We'll get our rear protector. Pop that on. It's got a little locating lug there to go in there. And another one there to go in there. And that's gone nicely back together. There we go. And that one screw is all that holds that rear protector on, with the lugs there and there. That's all it has. And let's be honest, that's all it needs. Starting to look like a fishing reel again. Next thing is we'll put our friction ring on. It's a fairly loose fit, so it's easy to get on. Should spin freely like that. We'll put our dust cap on. I don't know which side this owner will want to wind with. Most people go right hand side, so we'll put that on the left, and the handle on the right. Next we'll pop in our inner anti-reverse ring. Locate it there and just gently pop it down into place. Make sure it's doing its thing. It's as it should be. This washer just gets a coat of a film. That fits on top of the AR ring, and this gets that little cup which receives that part of the rotor, and sort of that bit there. And that sort of fits on nicely. And nice movement. Good. Did I say good? Sorry. We'll just put just a dab. Dab there, dab there. Turn up the wrong way to tighten it. You've got to be fairly careful. Something you should look out for with every reel when you put these rotor nuts on, because they're brass, they're very soft, and so is on these the pinion is also brass. And if you cross thread them and just try and force them at all, that's it, thread gone. So just be a little careful when you're picking up the threads. So we'll just nick that down until it's touching. Good. We'll put a drop of machine oil there. Let that work its way down the shaft. Seal, only one way it can go, well, only one way it should go, with the seal bit facing upwards. Just sits on top, doesn't have a recess or anything to fit into. And that is that. As far as that goes, let's put the handle on and give her a spin. And that's pretty good, considering we didn't change out the gears, which would have been ideal, but the owner decided to go and reuse the gears. That's not too bad. So that's that for now. Let's see what we can do with this broken piece. See if all of it is there, and it appears to be. So we'll go ahead and give that a glue up with CA, and we'll come back and put her on. So they're the spool spacers that came off there. They may need to be adjusted when they put line on there and give it a cast and wind it in. You may need to adjust those spool washers, but you can get that on the big jobs. It works nicely. Very nice. I'll just try that bail trip just to make sure and it works as it should. You see how what I said before, how sort of violent that is? Every time you do that, that's clunk, crash. But if you do it this way, make your cast and do that, your reel will last a lot longer. You may not want to do that. You may want to use it as it was designed, and that's okay too, because Shimano will be more than happy to sell you some more parts or even a new reel. But anyway, that's it for that one. We just got to wait for that little ring to come, that little plastic ring to come for the line roller, and it's good to go. So thanks for watching again. Like and subscribe if you can, and we'll catch you next time.